Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the NBA Betting Show. With us, as always, we've got Mike Lockey from LivePokerCoaching.com. We've got Matt Mouseman from DraftKings Show The Slate from his own podcast, Studying the Sharps. I am Mike G, and I'm just wondering if Anthony Davis still has a tummy ache. Matt, let's go straight to that Lakers game. What if we want to talk about last night, want to talk about tonight's game? I think we should start with LA. What are we looking at?
Okay, last night the Lakers finally lost. I want to victory lap this one, but I don't because we didn't really even have a bet here, and we were showing a tiny bit of value when Jared Allen got announced in, or when he went through shoot around. It was like 1 point of value, so we didn't really have an edge. But what we talked about was the Lakers were a bit overvalued in general, and the idea that they're just going to keep winning was a little silly. And then Anthony Davis only played 8 minutes in this game. I just want to look at the box score to see who filled the minutes, but LeBron played a lot, and then we got a lot of Thomas Bryant. We didn't get much Damian Jones. I guess they kind of split the center minutes after Davis left the game. As we mentioned yesterday, Wenyen Gabriel was out. So we had talked about before yesterday's game that the best bet for Tuesday was actually a Wednesday bet to take Toronto at any number 6 or less as soon as it got posted. Because we had said the fair line was going to be around 9 or 10 for the Raptors, even in a scenario where Davis and LeBron were healthy for Wednesday's game and both playing. We got not much posted around the sports books before tip-off. I think The Win was the only site that had a line before the game. But after the game, even with Davis going out early, there were 6.5s and 7s kind of. I mean, if you're in a legal betting state in the U.S. and you have FanDuel and DraftKings, they had lines. So, I don't know if we were clear enough about what we said yesterday that taking Toronto at anywhere around -6 was worth doing as soon as you saw the line. But certainly once there was any question about AD, and I don't know if he's going to play tonight, but it doesn't seem promising for him.
It's way less than it was at tip-off of the previous game.
Certainly that. So, yeah, right. I hope that people...
We're at -9 now, right? So
yeah, 9.5.
Okay. Yeah, so if you took that advice and found a -6 or even a -6.5 last night, you've already picked up 3 points of value.
Yep.
Looks good. Anything else for that game tonight? Anything else that might move things other than obviously getting any definitive news on LeBron or AD?
It's just the two of them. I don't think, we already have the Raptors injury report. We know the guys that are out. It's like Otto Porter and Precious Achiuwa. It's none of their usual starters. I mean, those guys do matter a little bit, but we've had them out for a while anyway. That's not new information.
Right. So do you want to play the what if game now?
The what if with LeBron and AD, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple things, and it looks like the line is 9.5, something like that. If we get, let's say, the worst case scenario for whoever is rooting for the Raptors, or like me, if you already bet the Raptors when you saw the 6.5, if Davis winds up back for tonight, if he winds up playing, let's say one night of good sleep and he's okay, I think they'll give LeBron the night off, possibly anyway, but even more likely that happens if Davis can play. We talked about the back-to-back in Toronto being especially difficult, and LeBron had to carry a larger burden because Davis was out. He played 36 minutes. He ended up having 17 rebounds. He probably took a couple extra shots. He had the ball a bit more. There was more.
LeBron was in Cleveland. I thought that's reasonably predictable.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how likely is this AD thing a hangover?
From a literal hangover?
Literal hangover.
I don't know. There's a lot of flus and stuff going around. I mean, I'm going to say it's not impossible.
I get it.
I'm going to say not impossible, but it's probably not that.
Breaking news on the NBA betting show. AD drinking problem? Question mark?
Yeah, right. That should be the title.
Hey, I'm just trying to get creative. Maybe LeBron had a party the night before. I don't know. Just trying to think outside the box. Obviously, I wasted.
If they had just clinched a playoff spot, I kind of actually, when that happens later in the year, when teams start to clinch playoff berths, we can refer back to this.
Love it.
So
all right, so we'll have to track. It's kind of like when the teams come to South Beach. When teams go to Cleveland, you got to watch out for the big nights at the bars in Cleveland. Maybe.
When LeBron
Cleveland,
comes in
yeah.
town, I'm sure it's quite different. That's all I'm saying.
Cleveland in early December is a party town.
Gotcha. All right. Anything else? All right. So we're really just watching to see. So
What if they're both out?
Okay, yeah, let's lay out all the scenarios because there aren't that many. We're talking about 2 players.
I think AD is very unlikely to play.
I agree, but let's say worst case, AD plays and LeBron plays.
Okay.
We still don't have Lakers value even after this line moved, but we know the line will move if this happens because the opening line here was around 6.5. If AD and LeBron are both confirmed in, it's going to go back there. Like, even though...
And then I would probably be getting on Toronto at that point.
Right, and then you can either use that opportunity for some arbitrage like we talked about, or use it for a middle. We're going to want to rebet Toronto at -6 if that happens, because we're showing it at -9 as our projected line. But I would say if AD and LeBron are both playing, the line for this game will be around 6.5, maybe 6. This current line, I think, mostly is pricing in Davis being out. Like, I think the market is 80+% sure Davis will be out. So if we got nothing else other than Davis being confirmed out, maybe we close at -10. Our projected line would go up to about 12.5.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm imagining AD, I think I saw a 5-point value relative to other stuff here.
Yeah.
Are you going to get on Toronto -9 if AD's
Yeah.
out? That's kind of my question. I think the answer
For
is
sure.
yes.
Yeah, well, I have him estimated only 3.5 points because we're at the fringes of blowout territory. So he's not worth as much in this context. But assuming he's out, which I think is mostly priced in, the line should move to about -10, 10.5, and we have the projected line in that case around 12, 12.5. So at -9, you're going to get some closing line value, but we also just think it's a good bet. If all we get is that AD is out. So I'm not necessarily recommending taking -9 now. I don't think it's going to move yet. I think if you see him get ruled out, take -9. I think it's like a solid 1 to 1.5 unit bet. But LeBron could sit too, because LeBron just played a game in Cleveland, and he played pretty big minutes, like a little bit more than he normally plays. He didn't take too many extra shots. I'm looking at it now. He went 8 for 17, but...
17 rebounds isn't an easy game, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, and emotionally, I don't know. I mean, I just have to assume, like, I didn't watch it, but he probably had the ball more because Davis wasn't there. And it was a pretty normal game for Westbrook. He took 13 shots. But either way, it's a back-to-back for LeBron, who has been dealing with foot and ankle injuries for the entire season and has been injured a lot over the past couple of years. And they're going from Cleveland to Toronto. So even if this were a perfectly normal game for LeBron, I still think rest is on the table for him. If we get LeBron out too, it's only going to move the line in terms of our projection like 1 more point, because LeBron is only worth, even in a context where Davis is out, like 2.5 points to the spread, maybe 3. Like we did get the ratings bump that pushed him ahead of Alec Burks from 538 yesterday. So
disappointing.
have to mention it every day.
Justice.
All right, so if AD and LeBron are both out, we're saying fair line is what, 13.5?
14 maybe, something like that.
Yep.
Bombs away.
The reason LeBron would only be worth like another point and a half is also because of like the blowout thing and the backdoor cover, and the starters wouldn't be in at that point anyway. But
Gotcha.
-9 looks even better if both guys are out. So I wouldn't wait for LeBron news unless it comes before Davis. So if we get a LeBron downgrade, Toronto worth betting. If we get a Davis downgrade, Toronto's worth betting. If we get them both at the same time, Toronto's worth betting, but just to a larger degree. Then it's like a 2-3 unit bet, even with the line already being at -9. Like if both those guys are out, this shouldn't be a close game.
Got it.
And even if just Davis is out, it probably won't be a close game. But if both are out, like Toronto could win by 20. Like then I'm looking at alternate lines for like Toronto by 15 at plus whatever odds. Like the game could get out of hand because this Lakers team without those two guys, I mean, Austin Reeves.
Some good alt lines.
Yeah, right. Like with that Pelicans Warriors game where they won by 45. Like I can't predict that, but it makes it much more likely that something like that could happen.
Put it in the range of outcomes, though.
Yeah, and it's a back-to-back for everyone else, too, not just Davis and LeBron. I mean, a tired Russell Westbrook is not a good player.
I was just gonna say, I see Russ saying it's my time to shine.
Yeah, I see Russell Westbrook going 5 for 27 if Davis and LeBron are
fire up the Russ props if they're both out. Not even close, right?
Yeah, but I highly doubt we can check. I can't imagine we have that available yet.
Matt, I'm an internal optimist. They're always going to be available when I need them to be.
So if we get game time decisions out of these guys, that'll give us time for the lines to show up. So if we want to be optimistic, I guess the perfect storm of
I hear you say that response a lot. I don't think they're going to post those. I don't think they're going to do that. Of course, we don't know what they're going to do, right? But I think you have to be prepared for all outcomes at all times, right?
So I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Yes, that's true, but when the player already has an injury designation, the books are just more cautious about posting props. Like yesterday,
but you only need one book to not be
that's true,
cautious, right?
That is fair. Although I think it's true. I think all of them kind of go in unison now. Yesterday with Jimmy Butler, I was surprised to see Miami props available before we got anything on Butler. But Butler was not officially on the injury report. That was kind of just us speculating Butler could rest today. He wasn't listed with an injury. This Davis thing is very different. So if Davis were already ruled out, then we could get Westbrook props because we're the only ones looking at LeBron sitting. Like, that's our edge here. Yeah, exactly. So I would say it's unlikely we see props until there's something definitive on AD. But if AD were to get ruled out and a bunch of props are available on Westbrook and LeBron, I would definitely pay attention to the Westbrook ones because LeBron could get ruled out for rest later after AD has already been ruled out. So in that sense, I totally agree. We're going to want to watch Westbrook, but I don't think we'll see anything for him until we get some kind of word on Davis. But we're the only ones really speculating about LeBron right now, I think. The books are not. There's no way the market is pricing in a LeBron rest game because this line would be way above 9 if they were.
Okay, I think we've got enough on LA, Toronto. Lots to keep an eye on. Matt, is there a particular beat writer for that game that you're keeping an eye on, or are you just watching the Underdog NBA Twitter feed?
Yeah, I don't have one. It's a good question. You should keep asking this when certain games come up. Like yesterday, I should have said, although he was slower than Underdog, Ira Winderman is the Miami guy. Underdog put out the update first because, I don't know, they just had it faster for whatever reason. But that would be my Miami answer. I don't have a...
But Miami tends to post 12 guys on an injury report at a time, so it's kind of tough to keep up with that one.
Ira Winderman will beat... They'll beat the Underdog one if it comes from a Spoelstra press conference, and Underdog will be first if it just comes from a formal injury report.
Got it.
And yesterday it was just they listed a bunch of people on an injury report, so we just had to go with the tweet.
Okay.
But I don't have a Lakers or Raptors guy. I'll let everyone know if I do.
Okay. All right.
If you want to be that guy, please hit us up at Preaching Sense or Preaching Sense 2 on Twitter.
There you go. All right. We're 15 minutes into the show. Is it time to talk OKC? Is that,
yeah. Unfortunately,
we probably hit the over on how long we've gone without talking about OKC. So let's talk Thunder Grizz. What are we looking at?
Okay, this one. I don't know if you guys were able to do it. I managed to get some money in yesterday because we got the Morant and Jaren Jackson. I got to see it how it works now because my Grizzlies PR push notifications are on at all times now. Maybe if they don't have a game that day, I'll turn them off.
What is the Twitter account there?
It's just if you search for Grizzlies PR. I don't know exactly what the handle is.
All right.
It should be the first one that comes up.
Okay, so so we're looking at now? Looks like there is some value.
Yeah. This line opened at Memphis -6 though, and then they tweeted the injury report, and Morant and Jaren Jackson were not on it, which is why
all the mysterious guys are suddenly no longer injured. It's funny how that works sometimes.
It was a rest game for everybody, I guess, last game, and then they won anyway. Pretty good job by Memphis to do that.
Gotcha.
So
for people looking to act now, we recommending to take this line now if it's available?
Yeah, it actually is -8 at a couple of them. No, I think it's mostly 7.5 everywhere. But still, Memphis, it's the same OKC spot as we've been having. They're overvalued road underdogs. And I have a pretty sizable manual adjustment for the Thunder. I bumped it by another half point from 1.5 to 2. We're going 2 full points on the manual adjustment for OKC. We have a negative adjustment on Memphis for late game garbage time scenario. Memphis also already has a smaller home court advantage for that same reason. So we're purposefully double counting the end of game, the giving OKC a bump on two fronts for that. And we have a 2-point manual adjustment for the Thunder just because there's a disagreement between the ratings and the market.
Gotcha. Okay, so all those things make, if you can grab a Memphis minus 7.5, that is worth doing right now. So anybody looking to take action,
I might be more interested in Thunder minus 7.5 at plus 400.
Yeah, please don't. I mean, you might win, but you can't. You're not allowed back tomorrow if you do it.
Okay, so that one's pretty straightforward. Barring any unexpected news at this point, grab Memphis minus 7.5.
Yeah.
Or grab OKC if you want to get Mac angry. All right.
Yes.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the next game. Well, where are we looking? Where else is there potential value this morning?
Okay, so we have another game where the line has moved just an insane amount in Utah, and we still might have value here. So we did not. I feel like we could have gotten this news maybe if we were being really, really sharp. Like this would have been a 20 out of 10 call to get Steph Curry resting. Like it would have been. It wasn't our normal situation for a Curry rest game, but we had talked about how Steph played a really, really bad game against Indiana, and I guess it could have been a logical conclusion from there to say maybe he needs a night off. I can't remember the last time Steph Curry rested when it wasn't a back-to-back. Like, it's been a while. Almost all of his rest games are just the second half of a back-to-back. But
all right, so he's out.
Isn't the whole team out though?
Steph and Draymond and... Actually, is Wiggins out? Wiggins may be out too.
I think it was at least 3.
Clay is going to play, but Wiggins is out, which is like that's fine. Clay is not rated that like he's rated as a decent player now. I mean, a lot was made of how bad he was at the beginning of the year. He's been a lot better lately. I think overall he's still a positive player, but he's not that good.
But whatever.
He doesn't matter nearly as much as Wiggins, who is maybe. I mean, he's the best defender on the team after Draymond, and Draymond's already out, so not having Wiggins there also, there's a bit of compounding between those guys. So they're missing Steph, Draymond, and Wiggins.
Okay. And are we recommending a bet now, given where the line is?
Yeah, I mean, Utah was +2 when this line opened.
Okay.
And now they're minus 7.5.
Well, that was a lot of news cycles ago. So
yeah, I don't think we can recommend a bet right now though, because my hunch is Mike Conley isn't going to play.
Okay.
But if Conley is announced in, then Utah is a bet. So if Conley winds up getting ruled out, I think we could see the line fall a bit, and then Utah may be worth betting at like minus 6.5, something like that. Like I think if we get Conley confirmed out, the line will drop slightly. And then we're going to have a projected line.
No reason to take the 7.5 if you can get the 6.5.
Right. If you can afford to wait and you're not
Do you think it runs risk of going to 8 or 8.5 if he gets ruled in?
It will go up if he gets ruled in, I think.
Okay, so you gotta act.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think he's a little less than 50%. I mean, he said so he went through a full practice on Monday, and after practice he said it still kind of hurts a little bit, but I'm hoping to play Wednesday. And now that the game is against a Steph Curry-less Warriors team, it makes a lot less sense for him to push it. Like they do not need him to win this game. They should win anyway. And
right, so,
I think they're going to be smart about it, but he might play. He might. I'm not sure.
Gotcha. So if Conley's out, we expect the line to be what?
I would say it probably falls to 6.5, and we'd have a projected line at around 9. But I don't want to take minus 7.5 when 6.5 might be available. And also minus 7.5 with the projected line at 9 is not that exciting anyway. That barely scratches into like plus EV territory.
Gotcha. All right, but if Conley's out and line drops to 6.5, we're saying go ahead and grab that.
Yeah, for sure. And if Conley gets announced in and you can still get 7.5, I think that is also a good bet.
Got it. So Conley out, if you can get minus 6.5, do it. Conley in, take minus 7.5.
Yeah, I mean, even at minus 8, like if it goes up a half point, if Conley's in, Conley is rated he's rated as Utah's best player, and I mean, some people might have questioned that before he got hurt, but we've seen the results without him. They kind of need him.
Mhm.
He's very important. Utah's pretty
Any
good with him.
thoughts? You mind if I change the subject, or do we?
No, that's everything on that game. Yeah, what else you
Okay,
got?
so this is more of a macro thought. One of the things I like to do is to just, simply check back-to-backs and whatnot. Clippers are on the front end of a Florida back-to-back. They're in Orlando, then they're in Miami tomorrow.
Okay.
Any thoughts on how that should be played, or any extra? Because they've been very cautious with Paul, and actually I don't know the minutes. Let me check the minutes they played last game. I'm
Well,
kinda
we
curious about
did
that.
actually
Go
get
ahead.
an update on them yesterday.
Go ahead.
A bunch of Clippers players not named George and Kawhi got ruled out already. So if they were to get rested, it would be a second update on top of an update that we already had. I think that significantly decreases the likelihood that we get them out, because the team already told us that John Wall, Marcus Morris, and Norman Powell are out.
So they played both of these guys 29 minutes, 27 minutes in the previous game.
Oh,
That
wow.
is-
So George had a minutes limit too, which we kind of weren't expecting.
That was something they announced, was that George would also be on a minutes limit. I do recall
Okay.
seeing that along the way, and I don't know if that apply. I don't know if that's necessarily applying going forward, or if that was just for that opening game that he was back.
Right.
But I do think, like, let's be honest, if this Miami line opens early tonight, I would be really interested in looking at it, because I would be a little bit surprised if one or both of those guys do not sit tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Kawhi sitting tomorrow, now that we're kind of like thinking through this, Kawhi sitting tomorrow seems like a very real possibility. I don't know about George. Like, his injury situation is different. He's not rehabbing from surgery. Like, he's not. His issues seem much less serious. Like, they're worried about him re-aggravating a hamstring. So if he's back, like, I think he's just back. But he could rest too. Who knows? It kind of depends how tonight's game goes. That's the other part of it. So yeah, the thought process of like maybe they'll sit them on the front end. I think in general that's a good thought.
I get that's probably why they're sitting all these other guys.
Yeah, right. They may be giving them a night
And
off
they're gonna
because
stagger
tomorrow
their
they'll.
sits in a certain way.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, we may not get a line because we actually had weirdness with Miami's injury report yesterday, but
Right.
my hunch also is Miami is going to look like a decent bet for tomorrow anyway. Like a fully healthy Miami versus a fully healthy LA Clippers team in Miami with the Clippers on a back-to-back, we'd have a projected line of like Heat -4, maybe 5. My hunch is it's not going to be that high. The Heat have been struggling lately. They have 2 consecutive losses at home, one in Memphis, one home versus Detroit. No Butler, but like that could factor, like the recency bias there could factor into what the line is. If I see a Miami -2, kind of similar to what we just did with Toronto, like I think that's worth betting anyway. And then you just hope you get lucky and then Kawhi or George or both ends up resting also. No, it's a good call because that is our only back-to-back for tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's the only one that I was able to see.
Okay, yeah. I'd be shocked if Kawhi or George rests tonight just because we already
I do
have.
agree with that.
But it's still
it
worth
is
like.
mostly for tomorrow.
It's still possible though, right? Like one of them goes through shoot around and is, their legs are not feeling great, and they're just like, well, we're playing tomorrow anyway. Just take a night off. So maybe like a 3% chance for either of them to sit tonight, but like a 60% chance that we get a rest game tomorrow.
Got it. All right. Anything else for tonight where we see value or potential value?
Potential value for sure. Pacers versus Wolves. We have possible return of Tyrese Halliburton, possible return of Miles Turner. And we already are projecting a little bit of value on Minnesota. So the opening line here was 3.5. I wasn't really expecting this one to move because I sort of viewed Halliburton getting listed questionable as an upgrade because he's been out for 2 games. And they had said he's going to be out at least 2 games. So I thought with him getting listed questionable, we actually could see the line, if anything, fall more towards Indiana. But given what we have as the projected numbers, this one may just be mispriced. Like we have this projected Minnesota -6, even with Halliburton playing and Turner playing. It's a little bit hard to quantify Halliburton because I think we also are waiting on an update for TJ McConnell. So his impact is basically nothing if Halliburton's there, but if Halliburton's out, McConnell matters a bit because he's the backup. Andrew,
the next guy up is where a real drop off happens, right?
although Andrew Nembhard has a positive player rating now, he's been outrageously good in like the last week. He's the guy who hit the game winner against the Lakers.
When LeBron fell asleep, forgot to play D.
And he also put up like 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 13 assists in the Warrior game. And
Right.
and 538 has valued that enough. I mean, I don't know what his rating was before. We were never talking about him before any of that happened, but he has a player rating at plus half a point.
Okay.
So the drop off from Halliburton is not as bad.
Got it.
But
So
if
what
he
do-
gets ruled
let's
out and
talk about-
Turner gets ruled out, we're going to still have a projected line around like -9, maybe a
Gotcha.
little
So
higher.
Let's go with so let's talk about the scenarios and what to do, what's
Yep.
actionable. If Halliburton, let's say Halliburton and Turner are both ruled out.
Yep.
You're saying we already have some value on Minnesota, so we would be recommending a bet on Minnesota
Yep.
at that point at what line?
4.5. So there's enough potential
Tell me how
upside
this
here.
4.5 gets. Tell me how this 4.5 is not a bet.
Right.
To me, it feels like a bet now with upside, but
Yeah.
like I don't like. I'm not. Maybe we get some weird news during shoot around where we get some variants of maybe D'Angelo Russell doesn't feel good, but like
That would be fine. I
other
don't
than
care
that,
if he
this
plays.
feels like obviously not a great example, but
Yeah,
like,
he's bad.
This
That's
feels
fine.
like bet it now and not worry about it. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I think like worst case scenario, you bet Minnesota, Halliburton and Turner wind up playing. You get a little bit of negative closing line value, but you still have a plus EV bet according to the model.
Do you think better lines will be available?
Yeah, that's why
Okay,
I'm holding
all right,
off because
that's a reason to wait. Then.
if Halliburton and Turner are both ruled in, this line will fall.
But
Maybe
we have them
3.
projected in with the 6 line, right?
Yeah,
If
but I
understand
think
correctly.
if
Okay,
both
so
wind
waiting
up-
for a potential better line makes sense. Thank you.
Right, we're trying to optimize. So if both wind up playing, I think the line could get as low as 2.5.
Great.
And then the Wolves are a really good bet at 2.5 after it's moved. But if
Yeah.
both are ruled out, then you just get the 4.5 as quickly as possible. So I'm playing the waiting game because I am going to be available to do it. If you're not available to do it, I think betting the 4.5 is fine. But I don't have a lot of feel here for if they will play or not.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this one as well. Usually I can form an opinion pretty easily here, whether that's good or bad. This one, the Turner one, it was late in the day, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
It was somewhat unexpected, if I recall correctly. Maybe that was just something that, something personal, just, took a night off. That's kind of hard to say.
It was the
Halliburton
second
one-
leg of a back-to-back going from Portland to Golden State. Like we actually we didn't predict it, but we said watch out for Miles Turner rest. We didn't give any detail
Okay,
really,
yeah,
but
we-
on the show that day we were like he could sit out.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I guess you know what, after like
If
talking
it was
through that a
back-to-back,
bit,
then I retract some of what I just said.
I think they're more likely to play than not. Because
I think that's fair.
my initial thought when I saw Halliburton questionable is this is an upgrade. I don't think I'm not fully confident in that, but I feel like it was an upgrade. And I think Turner, now that we're talking about him, may have just gotten a rest game the other night. And the Pacers still kind of they're in this really weird spot where it's unclear if they're trying to make the playoffs or not. I think this early in the season, though,
It's weird
they're
how
kinda
many
going for
teams in the standings are really tightly bunched together
Yeah.
around. It's like the amount of parity this year is kind of wild to me, and like I'm wondering if it's just gonna like level out to what we expect, or are we just gonna have some really unpredictable outcomes and certain teams emerge that nobody's expecting?
yeah. Well, I know
It's
you're kind of
interesting.
hinting at
I
OKC still.
actually was absolutely not intending to hit. I tried to steer it away from that as soon as I
Yeah.
felt it going that way. That wasn't what I was going for.
I was hoping that the team that would like enter the discussion at some point would be Charlotte because I bet them to make the play-in tournament before the season. Does not appear as though they're gonna be able to do that for me because they keep losing these games where they have leads and they're just bad. But the Pacers are still squarely in the playoff race if they want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem with them for tanking is they've got young guys that are really good. Like it's
Yeah.
teams that are tanking, trying to what we call it the other day, tanking with style.
Yeah.
is where they put some young guys out there that really aren't ready, but that's fine. They're giving them reps, picking up the losses, so they get in the Wembanyama sweepstakes. Indiana's got young guys that they're giving reps, but they're really good. Like they got the guy that could win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah,
So,
which one, Nembhard or Mathurin?
Mathurin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Nembhard's rated 2.5 points better than Mathurin by 538, but I know he's not really in it yet.
right.
Yeah, but
So
maybe he
you're
will
saying
be at
there's
some
a
point.
chance.
Yeah,
Yeah, as those guys keep getting better, so that's a fun one to watch. I do have a play-in futures question for you, but one more thing on this game before we leave. So you were saying if they both play, both being Halliburton and Turner. So if they both play, you're saying the line could drop to 2.5.
Yep.
All right. We've got a fair line of 6.1, assuming they both play, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't have. It's clearly if we think it's going to drop to 2.5, that's great. If it doesn't, you still betting this at 3 or even 3.5?
Oh, you're saying if it just
Both
drops less than I think it will?
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll just be progressively smaller bet size depending on how much value there is. But yeah, like
Right.
anything
Confidence.
that starts with a 3 would still be fine, and anything that starts with a 2 is better, and I would just bet more.
Got it.
If the
Okay,
line
yeah,
doesn't
just one
move, I'll probably stay away. Like if the line just
okay.
sits at 4.5, even after they're confirmed in,
Mhm.
I probably will. I'm not sure. That's like right on the border of if it's even worth betting at all. But it's
Right.
got to
But,
drop
no,
if those
I
guys
just want
play.
to throw that out there. So for those that are watching it, because we said 2.5 before, 2.5 is a great bet if they're both in.
Right.
But 3, even 3.5 is still worth a little something. So
Yeah.
keep an eye on that one as the news comes about those guys potentially. Well, either way. Anything else on games for today?
I don't think so. We can go to the future stuff
Yeah,
because
all right,
I'm just
so
doing a
since
quick
we-
scroll to see if we have anything.
it.
Yeah. I guess we do have Celtics value if Chris Paul gets ruled out. Is your
Okay.
play-in question related to Boston? I can't imagine that it is.
Playing with Boston? No, no. So
We do have a bit of
All right.
value on Boston if Chris Paul is still out.
Got
We'd
it.
have a projected line at like 4, and the current line it's up to 2.5 already. I mean, it's small, but if you can get a -2 and we know
Celtics
Chris Paul,
-2. I don't know about that.
you know, I planted my Celtics flag. If
yeah,
there's
you
any-
have to.
Any value at all showing
Yep.
here? I'm still saying it. Normally we're looking for something like 2 points of value or better. I'm going on record. I said it the other day. I'm staying with it. If there's any value on
We're
Boston,
in
at all.
negative territory right now, Boston.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah. So if that moves at all into the positivity, I think it's worth
I would be. Paul hasn't played at all since he's been out, right?
Yeah, I'm just refreshing this because I thought I added Chris Paul on here.
I don't see his name on here, but
Okay. I don't know why. He should be. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Just a second and he'll pop up and then we'll have there we go. Okay.
Got it.
There he is. So yeah, you can see we have a bit of value on Boston if he's out.
Okay. All right. So playing questions. One on the East, one on the West. What do you think? Let's talk East first.
All right.
Nets to make play-in. What do you think that line should be?
Shorter than it is. I know that because they've got to be above 200 now, given what's been going on lately. Yeah.
It was plus 255 at one of the books.
Yeah, there we go. DraftKings. That's what I have up. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a fan. Because
Okay.
there's the Nets playoff probability has gone up a lot in the last week or so because Miami has been losing, Toronto has been losing, Atlanta has been losing, Chicago, like all the teams around Brooklyn have been doing poorly. And we're getting Ben Simmons back on Friday. So the good part about this is the odds are way higher. The bad part, probably in terms of what you're looking at, is I don't think 538 is pricing in the return of Ben Simmons yet. And this is going to be the last game he misses. He's supposed to be back on Friday. So it's probably
Wanna
not
make a
as...
bet this is not the last game he misses.
Yeah, I was
The
gonna-
last game of this
just saying,
streak.
I'm kidding,
Fair
I'm
enough.
I might have a comment on that one.
Yeah, I guess given the downside potential for Simmons with injuries, with Kyrie Irving for whatever, with
Uh-huh.
just how top heavy they are if something were to happen to one of those guys, or Durant, like I don't want to call Durant injury prone right now, but the Nets are just so fragile
Mhm.
that
Okay.
yeah,
So-
I think it's a bet. I don't think it's above 50% that they make the play in though.
Got it.
Like I think it's around 40% to win. And so it should be break even be like plus 150 and we're getting
Got it.
250. Yeah, I think it's a
Alright,
pretty
so
good
there-
bet.
Right, so there's some value there, but yeah, there's a lot of fragility on physical and mental
Yeah.
state of mind states there. So
What I don't
Alright.
think is fragile though is the Nets' ability to at least make the play-in. Like there's the scenario where the Nets end up 11 seed or worse, I think is close to zero because they're already 13 and 12 and the teams behind them like the Knicks and Bulls and Wizards and Hornets, for them to get passed by like a couple of those, I think that would be a pretty crazy scenario. So I'm way
Got it.
more interested in Nets play-in than I am in Nets missing the playoffs, even though that one is way higher odds. Like that one, they could
I
wind
agree,
up
that was
9 or
largely
10.
Unrealistic.
They're not
Even
going to
in
miss the
crazy
play-in
scenarios where they
outright.
trade Durant or something like that. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
get something in return. It's so they're gonna be serviceable.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to be in the top 10 seeds regardless of what happens, unless they like just blow it up, which I don't think is very likely given that they're a game over 500. But not being in the top 6, yeah, that's well within like range of outcomes. So yeah, I think this one's pretty good.
all right, so now let's flip over to the West.
Yep.
And again, this is to make the play-in. Let's talk Clippers. Where do we think that line should be?
This one's hard because we're also talking about fragility and injury concerns around the team's best
Sure.
players. I'm just gonna go back to the
Matt,
538
let me ask you a
standings.
couple broad questions on the Clippers.
Okay.
Number one, do the players that we think are poor, do they have relative trade value on this team? Or do they have much flexibility?
I don't think
to
so.
do it?
I mean, a lot of them are overpaid or just old. Like, no one's trading for John Wall.
Is there any shot Kawhi's just washed?
Not really. I mean, washed in terms of his ability to stay healthy, but he's still really good. I mean, the game winner looked like vintage Kawhi. I didn't watch the rest of the game besides like the end, but Kawhi's rating is still like I don't want to assume.
I'm obviously playing the what if the ratings are wrong game, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but I think they're more likely to be wrong in the other direction because 538 has all of these Clippers players that most people who watch basketball would say are like good role players. They have all of them as negative. Like every player on the Clippers that isn't George, Kawhi, or Zubac is rated negative. I'm pretty sure that's right. So we've got even Zubac is rated negative. Batum is the one who's slightly positive. Oh, and Robert Covington, who they don't like to give minutes to, is rated pretty well because he actually plays really good defense. He's like pretty good 3-and-D guy who they just don't like to use for some reason. But negative
I lost a
ratings on
friendship
like
over
Reggie
Robert
Jackson,
Covington,
John
but,
Wall.
That's another story for another day.
What is it?
I lost a friendship over Robert Covington by accident, so that's another story for another
Okay.
day.
I mean, we can do it if you have time. You can do it now. No? Okay. But
All right,
yeah,
so what-
Reggie,
so let's-
Wall, Powell, Morris, Coffee, Terrence Mann. These guys all have negative player ratings. So if anything, they might be a little undervalued. I think it's fair, though. I think the projection on them is fair.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of them making the play-in, possibly above 50%. I do think that, like, we're looking at really good value on that. This has been my favorite play-in bet throughout the season so far is the Clippers to make it there.
Gotcha.
So we
All right,
is the line up to 200 again? It's a little bit
It
short
was
of that.
Plus 175 the last I saw it.
Yeah, I think calling this a coin flip is reasonable.
Okay.
Like maybe there's
Right.
there's like a 20% chance, 10 to 20% chance that they end up above the play-in, but also a 10 to 20% chance they end up below it, and maybe even a little bit bigger for both of those numbers, because
Okay.
the bottom of the West has improved. Utah does not appear for now to be tanking. The Kings are better. Portland has Lillard back now. Like, we don't think they're good, but they're not that bad either. Like, they're an average
Right.
team. And the Lakers are playing a lot better. I don't think the flu is going to keep Anthony Davis out long term. So the Lakers are in the conversation too. There is a scenario where the Clippers don't even make the play-in. But I also think like them finishing 5 or 6 is well within reason. Just with like the Warriors have been struggling, the Mavericks are having an okay season. Denver's only 4 games. Denver was 14-7. Now they're 14-10. The Clippers finishing ahead of 1 or 2 of those teams, like that could happen too. In the 538 projected standings, they're all kind of right around each other.
Yeah, so it just shows you just how good Kawhi is if he can get on the floor.
Right.
The ceiling of that team is high. So you're comfortable saying this probably should be considered a coin flip,
yeah.
But you can get plus 175. So there's definitely value on that one.
Yeah, the only reason I'm not betting this right now is because I've made this bet in some increment like 14 times already this season.
Got it.
I do like it though.
All right. Anything else for today?
No, I think we did a good summary. I think the call to watch out for Clippers rest tomorrow, just to remind everyone of that. Like specifically what we're doing. If I see the Raptors open, or not the Raptors, the Heat open as only small favorites, I think that's a bet no matter what.
Immediately.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because Butler's going to play tomorrow. He was out for conditioning yesterday. Maybe they give Kyle Lowry a rest game, but that doesn't matter enough if Butler's playing. Like, I think the Heat will be a pretty healthy version of the Heat tomorrow. And even if the Clippers rest no one, if the Heat are only -1, 2, or 3, decent bet. And we could get a rest game from Kawhi tomorrow. So I think, taking the Heat for tomorrow is like the tomorrow recommendation. And then I think we're good on today's games. We covered all the big ones.
Sounds good. So keep an eye on the Preaching Sense Twitter account. Matt will try to keep us updated as he sees any news breaking. Again, that Miami Clippers game that we were just talking about, that's for tomorrow. But keep an eye. And then there's a few things for today. Watch out for Chris Paul news being out. If he is out, there's some Boston value. We recommended some Memphis value right now.
Of course.
And then the other game we're watching is Pacers to see where the line moves, depending on the Halliburton and Miles Turner news. Sounds good. We will be back tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. Talk to you then.